But we are going to kick it off with everybody's favorite brand new segment of the channel. We're going to kick it off with some music news.
Love it.
Tyler, how up to date are you on the one Mr. Marilyn Manson situation?
All right, we're number one with a bullet here. I just know the broad strokes of whatever me and you have talked about prior. I don't know any updates whatsoever. Though, hold up. I believe that. Hey, Bowie, hold up. Hey, Bowie, you don't want to eat the sleeve, please? I'd appreciate that. Thank you so much. She was trying to. She was successfully chewing on the sleeve here. So maybe don't do that, Bowie. Appreciate that. I do know there's going to be a documentary coming out here shortly from. Yeah, or it has not, right?
I don't know. And we can get into this. Yeah, it's Evan Rachel Wood's
there you go.
Documentary,
her documentary
about that
Manson,
about their relationship and all that stuff.
It's going to be super happy, super happy-go-lucky kind of shit. Just going to be overall great.
Oh yeah. So I had heard about that too, and I was assuming it already came out because I was refreshing myself because something just came out a couple days ago.
Okay.
That you're going to talk about here. I was refreshing myself, and I had assumed it already come out because the preview for that was like it was last year
ago.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like the beginning of last year. So I think we're like well over a year.
Okay.
For when it was announced. So I'm surprised. I don't know if it's come out or not. Anyway, let's get into some Manson news. So this isn't the newest news, but I'm just painting a picture here. So Manson, he's had so many cases come against him for sexual assault and various other things. And this isn't what I wanted to talk about, but I saw this, and this was fairly recent too. This is January 30th. So a new lawsuit was just filed against him. Okay. And he's had a couple lawsuits dropped. He's had one that he settled. Just a lot of stuff going on. And this is outside of the Evan Rachel Wood stuff. So this suit dropped January 30th. This is reported. I'm on Metal Sucks right now. Rolling Stone was reporting on it though. And all this stuff is not good in here. Involves an alleged 16-year-old on tour in 95.
Oh yeah.
I think when I read through it, she's suing Interscope and Nothing Records, which too as well. Which okay, I guess it's kind of interesting to sue the labels. I don't know what the labels have to do with anything other than financial.
You tag everybody you can that can have financial. That can do something financially. That's kind of what you do usually, I guess, right?
Sure. And just to preface, none of this is like nothing we're going to say in this segment tonight is going to be like pro Manson, anti Manson. I don't know. I don't know much. It's just a fascinating thing. And I kind of wanted to talk about the grander scheme of this, about rock stars, rock star lifestyle, things that other bands did prior to Manson that, that when you pull this Band-Aid off, that you could really pull it off if you wanted to. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. I'm just stating that it could and maybe should or not happen. So this came out. So this suit is ongoing. Like this just dropped. This includes the Evan Rachel Wood suit. Now, what I really wanted to talk about was this. So this is really interesting. So this accuser came out. They filed a suit against Manson.
Okay.
And then she later, the suit was dropped, and then she later said she was basically coerced into it by Evan Rachel Wood to file the suit and make the allegations. Which I find really interesting because that adds another layer on this. I'm not saying Evan Rachel, she's being accused of this, so that doesn't mean that she's guilty of it or whatever. So this dropped February 24th. You hadn't heard about this?
I didn't look into Manson stuff. No, sir.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it came up in any of your timelines at all. So yeah, no. Ashley Morgan Smithline, she's an actress. I guess she dated Manson as well. and the judge threw out the case. And then she later came out and said she was manipulated by Evan Rachel Wood to even file the case. Succumbed to pressure from Evan Rachel Wood and her associates to make accusations of rape and assault against Mr. Warner that were not true. Eventually, I started to believe that what I was repeatedly told happened to Miss Wood and others also happened to me. So it's not saying that what he's being accused of by others didn't happen, but this particular person is saying it didn't happen to me, but I falsely accused him.
Yeah.
So, which is real crazy. Now, we are going to get into what just came out today.
Okay.
So obviously, Evan Rachel Wood didn't like that. Now, she's denying the allegations that she coerced. So Manson was getting sued for sexual assault and rape and coercion and all that. And now the girl came out and said, no, Evan Rachel Wood tried to coerce me into suing Manson and make these allegations. And now Evan Rachel Wood saying, no, that's bullshit. So a lot of it's just he said, she said at this point. He hasn't been found guilty of anything. Like I said, there's been a couple cases there's been one that he settled and a couple I think that were thrown out. One because of statute of limitations. I just find all this stuff really fascinating. You know, none of it would surprise me, obviously. But this was just a wrinkle into it. I don't know if you have a take on it. It was an interesting wrinkle. Then one of the girls is like, nope, Evan Rachel Wood basically forced me into this. And I don't know if she's lying about it or what. So
yeah, I mean, that's it makes me feel weird. I think that if Manson or his team or whoever, I don't know, I'm just saying, talking X person, I don't even just Manson, just X person, if they can bring a wrinkle into their main accuser, I think that they want to do that. So in the event that someone's team or someone personally reached out to someone and said, hey, I see that you're making these accusations about me as well, and they came and said something or whatever and convinced that person to, again, come back against the person that originally reached out to them and to say, hey, I know you dated this man too. Do you have similar stories? A lot of other people do, whatever. I think that if, you can convince somebody to retract or whatever, or even more so, not just a retraction, but a retraction with a accusation of manipulation from the main party, making the accusations. I think that's a pretty big deal, and I think that a lot of people might want to start second guessing her stories. You and I have talked about Evan Rachel Wood's accusations before, and they are very crazy. And I think they are, in line with most of what is said there by the other woman, apparently, as well.
This is what Smithline originally accused Manson of, which is stuff that other girls have accused him of.
Yeah.
So it's all crazy shit. And it's none of this is good if any of this happened. Obviously, even if some of it happened, it's not good. My whole point is, if now she's retracting it, this is a lot of shit to accuse someone of and just to later retract it. Now, correct. Evan Rachel Wood's team is saying that she's pressured into retracting it.
That's what I would assume, yeah.
Your lawsuit got dismissed. So I don't understand what the benefit of retracting it is. Unless Manson was going to countersue, which he is countersuing Evan Rachel Wood. So,
I mean, let's just, again, we're not talking about anybody in particularly, I'm just not going to say Manson or whatever, but anybody, if someone could come to an agreement with said party that was doing the accusations that their accusations don't matter anymore necessarily, like, in the grand scheme of like the law, that girl's accusations no longer matter because her lawsuit was thrown out. But if I can bring about and convince you, or, give you enough of an incentive to retract said things, I'm going to want to do that, because evidently Evan Rachel Wood, or the main accuser here, she's not wanting for a payoff. She doesn't want to go away because of Manson's money. So if put her in a negative light and cause other people to doubt whatever her stories are, you want to go ahead and do that, and you're going to put as much financial reasoning towards the other party to convince them or to whatever to retract said things. The thing that's very weird to me is that like the physical assault accusations are so insane that like when you're saying they didn't happen, are you saying they didn't happen period, or are you saying they didn't happen the way that
To
you
that
said they
extent.
happened prior? Because you
Yeah.
said that he broke your nose. I don't
Hmm.
know. I'm not trying to shame anybody into whatever they're into, but breaking a woman's nose either happens or it doesn't. You're either carving
Sure.
your initials into somebody or you're not. You're either
Yeah.
drinking their blood or you're not. So
Yeah.
don't know how that. It's not like he called me this, he said this. It's not whatever. That's physical. Like we're probably I don't know, whatever. We can probably check your stomach, I guess, where cuts and initials carved into. We can probably see if that happened. I don't know, man.
This
It's
is
it's it's
I mean, this has
insane.
been going on for 2 years now. Because
Oh yeah,
I went back through the stories, and it was like 2021 when his house was raided, and they took
okay.
his hard drives and shit. And I don't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
know if anything has come of that. It's
I
really
think so.
weird.
So
And,
I'm always under the impression, like from people smarter than me, is when you're not hearing about certain things, it's a real problem. Like for the person, for like
sure.
Manson in this case, it's
Yeah.
if there's no leaks or no talk about something, it's because something really real is happening, and that there's no reason to put out any sort of like blustery like bombshell stories or whatever from like a law enforcement perspective, I guess, or whatever, because the thing that's going to come out is going to speak for itself,
Mm,
So there's no reason to talk it up.
sure.
So that's why with a lot of things applying to certain other folks that are in our lives, whether we want them or not, every day of the week, um, certain things are talked about every day for certain folks, and nothing ever comes up to any, comes up and makes anything of
Mm.
these things because it's all just a lot of hot air at the end of the day, right? But if you're not hearing anything, if I was Manson, if I was in this case and there was things taken and no one has brought anything up about these things, if it was me, I would be pretty scared and kind of like, I wonder what is going to happen now, because what did they
I mean,
find?
I would almost argue the opposite though, and play devil's
Yeah.
advocate here, because two of the cases have been dropped. One of them
Mm-hmm.
I read because of statute of limitations, so that means there might have been evidence to
Yeah.
find him guilty. They just couldn't because it was too
Of
old.
whatever.
The other one was that one. The Smithline one was dismissed, and the other one he settled, which isn't an admission of guilt. So
Yeah.
I don't, just because he's settling doesn't mean he's guilty. It might just mean I don't want to go to court. So it's real interesting. I get, to tie this into like a sports analogy, the Trevor Bauer shit. I get a Trevor
Mm.
Bauer vibe because I guarantee Manson. I can't guarantee, obviously, but I would not be shocked if he is into any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I would not be shocked if he used his position or his whatever stature as a famous
Yeah.
musician to push the boundaries of that stuff. So I'm not saying none of it happened. I'm just saying I'm getting weird vibes like that where maybe some of that stuff was
Mm-hmm.
consensual. Maybe he took it too far, but that's why we're blurring the lines here, and I think that's why he's dodged any guilty verdicts
So
for
far, yeah, for
so
sure.
long.
I think what kind of hurts him a lot in these situations is like, again, I just know whatever I know, right? I don't know everything about everything, so maybe I'm wrong here. But I don't think there's anyone really going into the wall for Manson. Like the thing that
I
helped
don't.
out Johnny Depp in his whole thing, whether you believe it or not, whatever side you're on, the thing that
Yeah.
helped out Johnny Depp to a lot of folks is that there were a good number of women, a lot of women with a name value to them, celebrity wise, if that means something to you, which apparently it does to a lot of people, I guess, right?
Mm.
But there was a lot of known women that were willing to go on record and say that was that even that kind of stuff never happened. Like his former girlfriends or wives or whatever all kind of said, like, for the most part, again, I don't know everything about that whole case, so maybe I'm wrong in a certain sense for some of them, but for the most part, I believe that a lot of them said that was not the guy I knew. That's not the guy I knew. I was with him for 5 years, 10 years, whatever, right?
Mhm.
And like a
Yeah.
lot of that kind of stuff. And that helped out Johnny Depp, I
Well,
think, at the end of the day, because a
well,
lot of
also,
people didn't,
also, just Amber Heard in general didn't help herself. Like if you watched
she did not.
any of that,
She did not.
you could tell like she was equally as insane as Johnny
Oh, they're
Depp
both
is,
crazy. They're both obviously not
and
well.
they
Both of
should have
them, yeah.
never been together.
No, absolute
Um,
nightmare. So, but I
no,
think they asked
but I
Dita Von
agree with
Teese,
you.
which I think is Manson's ex-wife. I think they actually got married, right? I think they asked Dita Von Teese, and I think that she, fuck, I feel like this happened. This is probably very early because that's the first question you go to, because I think that's the only marriage he's ever had, right? I want to say, but
Mm.
I think they went to her, and she like was like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't. It's not for me or whatever. Like, whatever happened
Mhm.
with those women happened with those women. I'm not saying anything. I think that she kind of like, washed her hands of the situation.
But didn't defend
So
him,
correct. So I think
which
that kind of
doesn't
stuff works
necessarily
against you
mean
pretty
anything. But I get the point you're saying though.
optically,
Yeah,
not good.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're right. I don't think I've seen anybody, male or female, like friend or whatever, come out
Yeah.
and really go to bat for him. So that is an observation for
Isn't
sure.
that,
Now,
I think one of the first things that helped, or not helped, or whatever, but like they echoed Evan Rachel Wood's story is one of his tour guys. Didn't one of his tour guys come out and say like it was a known secret, basically, about his weird shit? Like, and even in like, and maybe not
I don't
like
know.
in terms of like brutal stuff, but roundabout broad strokes, it was very known as to what was probably going on between these two parties. And he knew that for a lot of it, it did not seem to be consensual because of the nature of the accusations or whatever
Hmm.
he had seen or heard or whatever, right? So, like, there are people coming after Manson. I don't want coming after whatever, but are corroborating her stories that are in the
Sure.
bubble and whatever. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, it's really sticky because as me and you talked about immediately when these all came out, none of this is shocking by any
No,
means. Like
no, no, no.
all of this stuff, like for better or worse, is not surprising. And that's not a good thing, probably, right? Like I would
No.
never want to be a certain kind of celebrity where somebody is accusing you of something is like, oh, that's on brand. I could have seen that coming from a mile away. But
Yeah.
a lot of this, unfortunately, is very, very, unsurprising.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and
so
it true because it's the nature of the allegations. It's not just assault; it's everything else that was that's tied into it.
100%.
So yeah, definitely a crazy story. You know, we talk about this all the time though, but you get into like that 16-year-old at the time that was on the bus, did stuff, shouldn't have been on the bus, may or may not have done stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, you get into that situation, like there's these websites that I go to for this news. They they also talk about Led Zeppelin and Def Leppard and Motley Crue. So like my whole point of it, none of it is good.
No.
And Manson's allegations are beyond any of that. Like if
Yeah.
any of that shit is true, it's sadistic and cruel.
Yeah.
Beyond just basic shit.
Yeah.
I'm not saying any of it is good, but it's an interesting line that you run in this kind of niche
Yeah.
if
If
you're going to
like,
be
that's
into
we've talked about
like
it a
this
lot.
fandom.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot over the years, obviously, because there's been quite a bit of a reckoning for certain folks the last 5-6 years or so, right?
Mm.
Some more than others, right?
But
But
not really in the music world.
yeah, I think
Like Michael Jackson, I guess, but that's like all of that's none of it. He's dead,
no, that's
so
new. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
very
none of
sticky
it's
situation,
new.
I think, for a lot of it. 'Cause it's
R.
like you're
Kelly.
right. Yeah, that's fair. He is the one that I guess
Mhm.
has really ultimately, had, shut open and shut case really for a lot of this stuff. Unfortunately, right? For the people that he was involved with. But yeah, I don't know. It's you get into like a weird area because a lot of people care about, not that they shouldn't care. A lot of people should care about this stuff, I guess, right? Obviously. But you either got to really care or you can't really care at all for certain things, right? Because again, not saying anything of this ilk is okay. It's not okay. It's absolutely not. Um, but if you want to go really hard against certain folk, you kind of got to go really hard against all folk that more or less, and some in writing, which is what Steven Tyler is currently, being, kind of going through ringer about, because he actually
Saw that.
talked about a lot of stuff in his book.
Yeah.
So, and he owned a lot of stuff in his book, and he said it was a mistake, and whatever. So, good on you coming to terms with that as a 65-year-old man when you released the book, probably right at the time.
Yeah.
I read the book too. It was, it's a good book, but I mean, I don't know, man. It's a very touchy, weird thing because unfortunately, just entertainment industries in general, obviously, but music especially is a pretty, by the letter of the law and morality as well, pretty, pretty dirty business for a lot of stuff, right? There's a lot
Well,
of bad things that have
th-
happened.
to me, it seems like though, if you're like pre 1990, or like if you're like 60 plus years old, it's almost just like, boys will be boys.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
don't. No,
And
you're absolutely right.
and Manson paints himself as a target. It's like you said, it's very easy to believe all those accusations just because of who he has presented himself over the years.
Correct. For years.
So
since the beginning.
it's harder for him. Steven Tyler, you can still go, still kind of has that benefit of the doubt, so to speak. Yeah. Whether he deserves it or not, just because Aerosmith is not Marilyn Manson.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, in terms of like
the
hatred and the controversy and shit like that. So that is also just an interesting
a thing that helps out the people of that age, right? The thing that helps them out is, like, for better or worse, the certain folks that are able to, put spotlights on certain stories or whatever, that's their era. Their era are those bands. So the people that run certain networks or certain websites or whatever you want to say, I don't know, whatever, right? But those people are more than likely a little older, still in the top dogs are still a little older. And I think they would much rather not have Steven Tyler, for whatever reason, just him in general, whatever, a man of that age or that era, emphasized, but they're pretty okay putting the spotlight on Manson, though, as we just said, Manson's stuff is, I don't know.
It is different. I'm not going to say that it isn't.
Yeah. I'm not one to say better or worse, I guess, because we're talking about, like, I think in Steven Tyler's case, it was a 13 or 14-year-old girl that he was taking guardianship of for months at a time, I believe, while he could take her on tour, and her parents had to consent to it. Just a very, very weird deal.
Didn't Nugent do the same thing?
100%. Yeah, he wrote songs about it.
Yeah, like Nugent did the same thing. Didn't Chuck Berry do the same shit?
Well, back in that time, like, again, we're all looking at this, and again, not to make it all anything okay.
True.
Absolutely not. We got to keep saying this because I don't want to feel like, we're defending these people at all. Okay. But we're looking at things through a certain lens of today. Back in that time, unfortunately so, a lot of the age differences and stuff were completely overlooked. That was never, ever really talked about. I think, like, I mean, fucking obviously Elvis, that was even this, like, when with Priscilla, she was 13, I think, or something along those lines. And then with Jerry Lee Lewis and his cousin, who was also 13. That in that time, apparently that was socially acceptable. Again, not okay at all. But socially, in the time, apparently was okay to certain folk.
It's different because, I guess all those people you just mentioned are dead.
Yeah.
So it's different in that aspect to me, but still, it's just a fascinating dichotomy. We'll see what happens with Manson. I'm curious to watch this documentary when it does come out. Do you think a
92-year-old Elvis is, paying a price right now if he's alive?
No,
Like, do
that's
you
my
think?
point.
Yeah, like,
No, that's my point. Like Nikki
yeah,
Sixx isn't, and we know Nikki Sixx did things with women that weren't women. That's my point.
yeah.
I'm not just picking out Nikki Sixx or Joe Elliott or literally anybody of that era. And
I don't
I'm not.
know.
I'm just saying no. None of those guys are suffering anything. Whereas Manson's allegations are beyond the pale. But I'm saying to me, it all falls under one thing. Like if you're gonna go
Yeah,
after him, I guess none of those women or those women maybe have tried, but it's
yeah.
just a weird thing. Like those guys, for some reason, like I said, if you're a band pre 1990, like if you're a legacy act, I guess you just get a pass. I don't know.
I just thought about something. So I wonder if the reason why we kind of unofficially put the line of delineation at like the early '90s or so, as to like the okay, not okay, or what you want to like area as. I wonder if that's because like in the '90s, the grunge era, those bands actually like kind of stood for things for social issues, and they brought it to the forefront a lot in their lyrics and their support of certain causes, the things they did interviews at and talked about or whatever. They made it a point to like talk out against a lot of that stuff. I wonder if
Maybe.
that's the reason why the conversation kind of changes a little, whether it's consciously or not. The conversation changes a little bit within that industry as to things that are okay and not okay anymore. Because like Kurt obviously, was a very big feminist and talked about that a lot. Eddie has talked about a lot of stuff. Like without knowing, I'm sure that Chris Cornell also did, and a whole number of guys I'm sure have talked about things of that nature before in that time not being okay and whatever. But I wonder if that's
Well,
kind of
I
why.
don't even think it's just that. I don't even think you have to talk about social issues. I think they just shunned the party culture completely.
Yeah, no, you're right, 100%.
Like the music was different, whether they were political or not. Because like Alice in Chains is not a political band to me at all.
Yeah,
But they just shunned that whole culture. So like you just never thought they were doing it because they never acted like it.
yeah, it was never the boys club. They never did. They never had boys club kind of vibes. That was the thing they kind of rebelled against.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So maybe that is why. Yeah. I mean, I'm curious to see what this documentary leads to. I do find it weird when you're suing a person and you drop a documentary because it almost seems like you're just trying to garner public support and paint the picture in the public eye. It's really. I'm not saying it's not a good look. I'm just saying it's.
I think that's kind of. I think that's unfortunately is kind of par for the course these days for a lot of horrible shit. Like you go on certain shows or certain something or other, you go on and you showcase whatever you're talking about, and I don't know. I think that's just what you do now.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just find it interesting. I don't know what if the proceeds are going to something. I don't know if she's making money off it. I don't know. Doesn't matter. If anything that happened that he's getting accused of is true, which I imagine some of it is not great.
Yeah.
I just find it interesting. And now you have an accuser coming out and say, no, the main person accusing him coerced me into this. So just another wrinkle into the story. And follow it along. I'm sure it'll be another 3 years before anything happens. So we'll see. Alrighty, let's move on. Let's move on to. We got 4 more topics. We can riff on these really quickly. This is really funny. Ozzy, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, said we're done touring. I'm done touring. I'm never touring again. So on Ozzy's Boneyard, he did an interview and he basically said, I'm not dying. If I can tour, I will. Right now, I can't. Basically, he goes on to say that Sharon told him that you can't announce tours and keep canceling them. So he's not closing the door. My take, and we can get your take here, is just stop. Like, you've done your thing. It's kind of sad. He goes on to say there's a quote in here that he said in the interview that the only thing keeping me going is making these records. and it sucks that I can't go out.
Yeah.
That's kind of heartbreaking. Yeah, the only thing that keeps me going is making records, but I can't do that forever. I got to get out there.
Yeah.
So like that's heartbreaking to me. But like you've already proved yourself. You've
Yeah.
lived 1,000 lifetimes. You're one of the godfathers of a genre of music. You know,
Well,
it's
I mean,
hard.
we just talked about this personally among family members that we have. I think that he's also, I think they're well aware, is when you stop is like when you start going. Like when you
Mm-hmm.
stop doing things, that's when your mind starts going. That's when like your life starts going, and you don't really have an identity anymore, and you lose track of time, and you don't know who you are anymore, and you don't know
Yeah.
what's happening in the world or whatever. So if he can keep a purpose, like touring apparently is his North Star is touring all the time. You know, that is what keeps him sane, evidently, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man. Well, I always thought it was reading that now or hearing that he said like Sharon said you can't keep announcing tours.
Yeah.
I
What
would
was
think
it?
that both you and I would have thought it was the exact opposite, and one person was pushing for something, and it probably wasn't Ozzy.
Well,
Um,
I don't think Sharon's telling him not to tour. This is what they're saying. And I heard snippets of the interview driving around. During the show, Ozzy, because this is Monday, I think. During the show, Ozzy said his wife and manager Sharon said he can't keep booking tours only to cancel them.
so if he does,
So
he has to
not
do
that
it.
he can't, yeah, not that he can't tour, but if you do announce a tour, you need to do the tour.
Yeah,
So I'm agreeing with you. I always thought, yeah, exactly. There's one party pushing that going. I'm not
yeah,
saying Sharon doesn't love Ozzy. She doesn't have his best interests in heart, whatever.
yeah.
But it sounds like if he can tour, he'd tour. So
I think
there may
if
be tours if he does get better, but you're old. You're gonna get worse, you know?
for sure, I think if Ozzy, like, if for whatever reason, if he felt he wanted to do a residency, I think that Ozzy could do a residency pretty
Mm,
healthy.
not a bad
Um,
idea.
yeah, like I think that he conjures enough fucking people that you could do a
Oh, sure.
residency at a casino here and on the East
Big
Coast
time.
too. And you can do that in obviously in Vegas or Atlantic City, I don't know, whatever, right? But you could do a 10-date or a 10-week residency. You play 3 times a week or twice a week or
Yeah.
whatever, right? You're gonna sell that out or healthy every night. And you're still gonna get the stimulation of it's a brand new crowd every night. Like, while there will
Mm,
be some crazies that buy 10 weeks worth of tickets for sure, you're going to get, it's a transient city. So you're going to get new people every single night. It's a whole new town basically every night. And you're going to get that stimulation that way. Um, and, I think that he could probably do that and be okay. But I don't know if that's something he wants to do, if he likes being on the road. I'm not sure,
hmm
man.
Very good point. Yeah, I mean, Crew did a residency. There's a lot of bands that have done residencies.
I mean, every band of
Yeah,
that
Def
era
Leppard.
has done one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Kiss did, Aerosmith
yeah,
did.
yeah,
If guys are still on the table at this point, they've done a residency.
yeah. So
Lost did one.
just crazy. I don't know. Maybe we'll see Ozzy do shows again someday. This is more in the so sad it's funny category. I don't know if you heard about this.
Okay.
Wes Scantlin arrested again.
Oh my
Basically
god.
arrested for the. I was reading this and was just laughing my ass off. He was basically arrested for the same thing that he was in 2016. He went back to the house that he had foreclosed on
Mm-hmm.
in like 2000 something,
Yeah.
and bought it in 2005 for 1.7 million. Foreclosed on it a decade later, and then he got arrested for trespassing in 2016. Got arrested for doing the same thing at the same house.
Yeah.
So went back to it. He was released on bond or bail or whatever. So funny it's sad. I'm not a Puddle of Mud fan. I like Blurry. Like that's the song to like.
Yeah.
It's just sad. Like this is just sad. You're seeing a person like lose their mind at this point. Like, just get the fucking help. I don't know if you have a
Yeah. I
take
mean,
on this. It's just
well, I mean, it's kind of the same. Like, yeah, he obviously has. He's had very well documented substance issues here live. And we talked about it whenever it happened, like the week after it happened, I think, whatever, is when he was doing a date and he started calling out. I don't even know if this is a person. I don't even know if this is actually the person, but he kept calling out to the front row, this motherfucker is the one that stole my house. This motherfucker
Yes.
stole my house. And he was
Yeah.
yelling that out in the middle of a show. And I don't even know if that was a real person that actually had any sort of connection to. I didn't look into
Yeah.
that far. Maybe it never came
I
out.
remember that.
But yeah,
I mean, there's a tons of shows that he's missed, walked out on. Here's a show they're talking about in Green Bay. Complained about the venue's lights and just left.
Yeah.
He was arrested at LAX with a BB gun. It's just
like
it's just bad shit, and I just find it funny that he keeps going back to this house. Like, it's just sad.
I'm assuming then, I don't know, obviously, but I'm assuming, I don't know if it's listed, it says that in there, but it's been 6 years, okay, since or I guess 7 years, shit, since you probably had anything to do with the house. So he got foreclosed on in 15. Let's just say he got out of there at 16, and then he got arrested in 16 going back. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, not saying it's okay or whatever, but I'm going to say that he thought that, like, there was stuff at the house that he wanted or something or whatever, and there was probably nobody in the house immediately after it got foreclosed on, because there is a long process that goes along with that.
There was a woman there.
Oh, there was.
This woman filed a restraining order and shit. Yeah.
In 16 as well. That was damn.
Yes, yeah. I think it's the same person.
Oh man.
Based on this article from Blabbermouth, I think it's the same person. So I don't know. It's written a little weird, but either way, it's just like, man, it's sad. Like, just get some fucking help. You know, you're 50 years old.
He's not well with substance, but I would probably, make a guess he's probably not well mentally either in general.
No,
so.
I mean, obviously not. Yeah. Obviously not. It's 91. Wow. It's in the So Funny. Yeah, 91 in Kansas City, I guess. So it's in the So Funny. Or So Sad It's Funny category.
Yeah.
We went on to another story.
Wonderful.
Brian May still talking about the possible Bohemian Rhapsody sequel. This was talked about immediately after the movie dropped, and now they're bringing it back up. I have no idea why. I like the movie, but you ended the movie. You changed events to make the movie seem more sad. Even though so you've already changed events. So what is the sequel going to be? We just watch a man die, and then you guys just continue to like play all the songs for the next 25, 30 decades. Years. Like, I don't know, like, what's the movie about, really? So, yeah.
I mean, we talked about it way back when, even before it came out, because, I mean, we talked about it many years ago, because I remember Sacha Baron Cohen went on Stern and was talking on Stern, because Sacha Baron Cohen was connected to that movie forever, for years, because he actively wanted to do it. And then he was in talks, and he met with the guys and everything else. And then I think he was connected for months and months or years or whatever. And then when he got into, I don't know if production, but early talks of real things with the band, Brian May told him that, like, I think the exchange was something along the lines of, because I've told you this too, is like, we had the best story, back and forth, whatever, that you were talking about it. And then Sacha was like, no, yeah, absolutely, you do. Like, Queen has the best story. And then he reveals to Sacha Baron Cohen, yeah, I mean, it's Freddie dies and we just keep going. Like, that's incredible. And then Sasha's like, what are you talking about? Like, so you want to kill Freddie off in the first 26 minutes of the movie, and then you want to just the next bit, just hour and a half or whatever, to be about you guys playing throughout the 90s and the 2000s with different singers and stuff. That just seems like a weird deal, man. Like, you're gonna see John Deacon retire, and then you're gonna see Brian May and what's his name, drummer, he's a drummer,
Roger Taylor.
Yeah, there you go. Roger Taylor and Brian May just keep going. Like, that's a weird deal. Yeah, just like you said, you already changed factual events. You already lended a little bit of creativity there for the ending of the last movie. There's no reason why. If you actually wanted to do it, like we're going to talk about it, like you could actually make a movie from Live Aid. You could make a movie from Live Aid until Freddie died, because Live Aid was 84 or 86, right? Something like that. I don't say one of those years.
Yeah, I gotta look back here. They do talk about it. Something like that. Yeah, and he was diagnosed with AIDS in '87.
87. Exactly.
So there is a time frame there, but the problem is they jumped it to make the Live Aid performance seem more impactful.
Yeah.
He found out he had AIDS and then did Live Aid. And it's funny because Roger Taylor was talked about that. I guess Mojo Magazine asked about it. And all he said was the important thing is it did happen. We're not telling lies. The chronology doesn't really matter. But it kind of does if you want to make a sequel to this fucking movie. They have said in other interviews in like 2020 that they weren't going to make a sequel. But it's funny, like every few years this gets brought up. And Brian May's like, maybe it's just like in case of emergency, let's crack the Bohemian Rhapsody 2 case. But the point is, like, there's no movie there. There is literally no movie there. You've literally basically told Freddy's whole life. So it's not like you could even tell a prequel. You're going to show him just dying, which is a miserable movie. I'm not saying it can't be a good movie, but it's a miserable movie. And then it's just
that's the only movie. That's the only movie left. If you would have ended at Live Aid and like done everything correctly and ended at Live Aid triumphantly, then the next movie would have to be a complete Freddy movie, basically all about diagnoses to death. Like
that would actually be a way more interesting movie.
Yeah, and
but the
very
problem
much
is they jumped
more sad and everything else.
Yeah,
no, 100%.
I would not saying that scene. Yeah, not saying that scene or anything isn't good. It's really good. It's incredible. It's also the highest grossing music biopic ever.
Yeah.
Which is really good. It made a lot of money. It's a good movie. I just find it funny that this gets brought up like every couple years. That maybe we'll do it. So
no,
already.
The Rocket Man one did it right though with Elton, because that ended at a proper spot.
Oh, okay,
well, there you go. Elton.
I haven't seen it.
Rocket's good.
So when does it end?
It ends just as he gets sober. That's the end of the movie. So like it's like it's like late 80s.
Okay.
He gets sober and that's the end of it. So
if they wanted to do another one, there's still a lot of story to tell.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like there are some twists and turns into 90s Elton. There's a lot of twists and turns there, and it's a lot of stuff that he did. It's not as interesting necessarily as his first part of his career, right? But him going and Princess Di dying, obviously him making Candle in the Wind, and it's the top grossing single of all time. And then him doing the Lion King stuff with Disney and everything else, kind of making another resurgence of his career. Him getting married and finding love and everything else, like it's pretty incredible what happens. But it's just not as stimulating as the first movie, really.
Sure, but no, always interesting. They're never going to let it go away. Last bit of news here. I don't know if you heard about this. They finally announced the final concerts. It's going to be December 1st and December 2nd at MSG in New York City. So that's very cool. Now, Doc McGee later goes on to say that we may see a different version of Kiss. This isn't the end of Kiss. I mean, basically, Paul and Gene have basically said the same thing. It's going to be real interesting when there's like a Kiss cover band touring called Kiss. Which it's going to happen. So what's 100%. Your take on this? These are the final dates here. I think it'd be really cool to see them. They're not coming here though, so I'm not going to go out of my way to go see them. So
no, I think that I don't know. Like I don't have a dog in the fight here. Like if Kiss ends, that's kind of a bummer, right? Because Kiss is just an institution, like a little bit. But if they end, it's not going to make me super sad, really. But I don't expect it to happen. Like everyone's older, but it's going to end. It has to end now, right? Because they've all talked about having an official sanctioned cover band act, right? And I don't know if that's so crazy anymore. It's there's not a lot of bands that necessarily can do that, but their entire deal, Kiss is more like Marvel, exactly, 100%. So that's why like people Kiss never had any integrity. It was never a band of integrity. The fact they've sold absolutely every possible thing they can possibly do, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
They've had 3 different farewell tours at this point, right? And so why are we going to buy it from them now? It would be hilarious to me if it'd be hilarious and it would not be shocking if they just announced like, you know what, we had so much fun. We're gonna come out, and do another round of dates or whatever in Asia and this and that. Uh,
Mhm.
but I don't know, man. If you want to end it, end it. If you not, do your thing. You don't have to make a big spectacle of it for 5 fucking years. But to their credit, and they talked about it, they did lose the COVID time. I understand that. They
They did.
lost a
Yeah.
lot of time. So like they're not entirely in the wrong because I saw a clip from that interview and Paul talks about how like people are poking fun at them because they said it's a tour that never ends. It's been the last tour for the last 5 years. And he said we lost 2.5, 3 years of solid,
Yeah.
heavy touring because of COVID, which makes complete and total sense and totally, absolutely true. But I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Paul says when they talk about one-off shows or a residency or something, says he can't say, but it's the last of any kind of regular shows or touring.
Okay.
Gene later goes on to say, like, if a group, maybe it's in a different interview or the interview they did announcing these, that if a group of 20-year-olds want to get together and license Kiss, I guess, then and continue going on, maybe we'll make that happen. I think it's going to end up like Monster Jam. I think they want it to be like that or like TSO, where you can run Kiss in like 3 different cities.
I think they're going to sell Kiss. I think they would sell it.
Oh, maybe.
I think they would sell Kiss to to Live Nation or to whomever does these kind of things. They would sell just like Monster Jam. Monster Jam got sold to the big. I think Live Nation owns Monster Jam, so like they own a lot of those trucks too. So it's all a production. So it's all just a big show, which is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. But like it's just wrestling. So they're gonna sell Kiss at some point, and just like Star Wars or whatever else, and you can make arguments that there shouldn't be any more Kiss records after that, right? Like you can talk about it because Kiss did come from like the same 4 dudes. That's not true. The same 2 dudes for the entirety of the career.
I mean, the majority of the albums are, I guess, the original 4. I'd have to look it up, but I think I think more than half of them have Ace and Peter on them.
Ace and Peter,
but either way, it's kind of sad. I mean, it's 50 years.
Yeah.
The band go away. Kiss has been a constant through many people's lives, whether you realize it or not.
There's
very cool that they are ending it in New York, though.
They are. What's something that's kind of interesting and funny. So I found myself down a rabbit hole with Kiss about on Saturday. Actually, I was working on Saturday, and I was just going through YouTube, whatever was working, and so I found there's a YouTube channel called Synkin, like SYNCIN, Synkin Stanley, and it's a page entirely dedicated to Paul Stanley lip syncing and all that stuff, right? Because that's been a big deal for a good many years now at this point, that Paul lip syncs the entire show. So that guy, I guess, does I don't know, you want to say podcasts or does videos or whatever and talks throughout, this stuff. I haven't watched any of these things. I just watched a little bit here and there of people talking about it. Anyway, he had on Doc McGee. Doc McGee went on Synkin Stanley. Doc McGee's Kiss's manager went on Synkin Stanley's podcast, if you will, and talked about things and talked about Paul lip syncing. And so said that Paul needs help, just like all bands need help every so often, whatever, this and that. But with Paul, the majority of it is definitely lip synced at this point. It's very weird because like when you're going off a track for the majority of the shows, I would love for Eric Singer, right? He's the guitarist. I would love for Eric Singer to be able to write a book in like 15 years or so.
No, it's Tommy Thayer is a guitarist.
Tommy Thayer, that's what I'm thinking about.
I think Eric Singer is the drummer.
There you go. But Tommy Thayer writing a book in like 15 years or so when he's out of this entire deal. It'd be kind of interesting to hear him talk about these times and talk about how that they've had to like perform to a track and he has to learn every tick and everything about that performance. He has to know it because everybody does, because you're all performing to a track for Paul. So it's a weird deal. I don't know, man. But it just, I thought it was really funny and like really weird that Doc McGee is, probably, I don't think Paul Stanley wants to bring attention to this dude at all. So, and it's not like it's a massive YouTuber. He might have a couple thousand subscribers on there. I have no idea, but not a big platform. But he felt the need to go on this guy's podcast to talk about the tour and talk about Paul Stanley lip syncing.
Which makes this even more funny, and then we'll wrap up news. Do you remember when Falling in Reverse, when Ronnie Radke, they lost their laptops and they had to cancel those dates, and then Trunk called them out? I don't think Radke ever brought up the Kiss shit, and Trunk is obviously the biggest Kiss fan. I understand he doesn't like appreciate the current version of Kiss, but that's the first thing I would have thrown in his fucking face. Is like, your favorite band of all time has just been doing that forever. Oh, Radke said that to him?
Yeah, so he said that to him, but he also pulled up one other thing that was wrong. But I believe Ronnie took out the Kiss card, but he also took out the Aerosmith card. And Steven Tyler famously doesn't lip sync. Like, that's like the freak of nature, is the fact that he doesn't lip sync and he still sounds really good. And he's 76 years old or something at the point, right? He's like Sammy. But Eddie, I'm a Eddie Trunk fan. Like, I listen to the show enough. Like, I just recently canceled my Sirius because the app will no longer work on my updated iPhone. I have no idea what's happening. So whatever, a little inside baseball. But I'm a fan of Eddie Trunk or whatever, right? In his radio show, Eddie Trunk, again, to an alarming extent, talks about this stuff every single day. So people will just write in emails and talk about how this band is doing this or whatever, and this band is doing that, whatever. And he will talk about it and go into it almost every time. And so he hates, I wouldn't say hates, maybe that's not the proper word. Eddie Trunk has been against Kiss since 2000. So when they stopped having Peter and Ace in the band, they never ended the band. And then when they brought on Tommy and Eric to wear the makeup and wear the gimmicks, and then they stopped addressing Tommy and Eric as like, Tommy and Eric, they're the spaceman and the Catman. Yeah. So like, that's now their gimmick, and like the fact that anybody can be the spaceman, anybody can be, be the Catman. But like for people like Trunk and other guys that care a lot, like, well, it's not like that's not a character. Like, it was Ace Frehley. Like, that's who that is, and that's Peter Criss. Like, these are people. These are not characters, right? And so like, he's been out on the Kiss train forever, and I guess him and Paul have been feuding over that for years. Like, Gene, I guess, is super cool with Eddie, and we'll talk with Eddie like privately and even publicly in certain senses for a lot of stuff. Like he'll come on shows or whatever that Eddie's on. But Paul has an out fucking no, absolutely cannot talk to Eddie Trunk. He also made it so Doc McGee, because I remember this, I was listening to the show pretty religiously at the time, but like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Doc McGee was supposed to come on because I think he had a book out or something or other. He's supposed to come on Trunk's show and talk about his thing. And I guess, Paul called Doc and was like, "Yo, you're not doing that." And so Doc pulled out and was not coming on the show like last minute, like day of, last minute kind of stuff, right? And so Eddie is like, Eddie would probably be the first one to go, "No, for sure, it's fucking stupid, it's real dumb, and I'm with you. Like, yeah, I'm not okay with this." And like, he also talks about like Motley doing it with Vince, but like not doing it enough. Ironically enough, like he gave Vince Neil props because he's like, because they do the backing tracks, which is like, because like his view on it is like, if it's stuff that like you absolutely cannot duplicate live, you can have a track for it, right? Like the massive gang vocals and stuff that Motley has, you can have those on triggers and stuff like that, because you would never be able to do that live, right? So like he's okay with that in his mind, but the fact that Vince doesn't go off a track and does Vince Neil every night and is not good, he's like, it's kind of a good thing. Like, warts and all, here's Vince Neil and here's Motley Crue, right? That's kind of his view on stuff. But yeah, he's very against Kiss and Paul doing this, and he calls it out all the time. So for whatever that's worth.
So, yep, Kiss is wrapping up. So see them while you can, if you want to. Anyways, guys, that's everybody's favorite segment of the podcast, new segment. That is music news.